Welcome back. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night, something I put out earlier. I just was trying to get a gauge how people felt because Deontay Johnson continued his hold in. So what do you think is going to happen? Does he sign a new contract with the team? Does he play with the existing one? Does he hold out to start the season and see how it goes? Or do the Steelers trade him? And so far, the biggest one is he plays with the existing contract, and he has, quite frankly, no other choice here, I don't think, Chris. He's not going to get, I don't think, what some of these other guys have gotten, most notably recently. Deebo Samuel's in a different league, I think, but DK Metcalf, also a more physical receiver. But I look at some of the other signings of wide receivers, and he's worth that comparison, but he's not going to get it here, I don't think. So what do you think happens?
I think that the leading vote getter there is what will happen. He'll play under the existing deal. People need to remember, I've heard, I think it was Aditi Kinkabwala who said with us today that the issue for him is that he would like more than 1 year guaranteed. You'll recall, Bob, that was the same thing Le'Veon Bell ultimately wanted. I think there was that 5-year, $70 million offer, but he just didn't like the fact that none of the money beyond the first year was guaranteed. Le'Veon Bell, though, had a little more leverage in that they couldn't fine him or do anything. He never signed his franchise tag, his tender, so he wasn't required, to do anything. Deontay Johnson's under contract. That's a big difference. Steelers want to fine him because he's not practicing, even though he's healthy. They can fine him. They are the ones who hold the hammer here, and that's why I think eventually he's going to start practicing with pads on, and he's going to play this season on an existing deal. I don't think the team views him as that kind of, quote, special player that Kevin Colbert said you need to be to get that second big contract from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree. And you see him today, this is what he was doing basically on his own, or everybody had the pads on. And at some point he has to do it for his own benefit, but also if you're going to have a relationship with these quarterbacks, you got to get on the field. The other news, Chris Boswell got a new contract. Nothing surprising here. 4 years, $20 million, 12.5 guaranteed. So that puts him right there in Justin Tucker territory until Justin Tucker gets a new deal, which he likely will. So there you go. Chris, I want to go to the lines. We've got a lot of people want to talk here. We're going to begin with JB in Bloomfield. He joins us right now on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. Go ahead, JB.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks.
All right, two things, actually. With Deshaun Watson, I don't expect Goodell to do anything more than the 6 games. I mean, all they really care about is revenue and ratings and money. This league is filled with criminals. I mean, come on. Other than Brian Hayes, total bust. This guy's terrible. Why would you spend $70 million on a guy who's done nothing? I mean,
well, it's a preemptive strike, basically, JB. You know, what they're trying to do is get ahead of the curve and eliminate arbitration years. But the thing is, you know, he's not exactly putting up numbers that you thought he might put up. And maybe people were induced into his first month on the job back in that couple Septembers ago where he hit the cover off the ball, and that raised expectations. He's not going to be anything more, I don't think, than what you see average-wise from him, Chris. They better hope he is, because he's a corner infielder on a team that lacks power.
They've got to hope that he is stellar defensively and has about 15 home run and 25 to 30 doubles power and hits for some decent average. The deal they signed for him, this is how I think skewed maybe Pirates fans' view of contracts are because of what their financial situation is versus the rest of the bigs. The deal they signed for him really is not that unfair based on the kind of player that it seems like he's projecting to be. So I know that for the Pirates, that's different. Every guy that you sign to any kind of long-term deal has to outperform that deal, but Hayes is on one that tracks like it's going to be about what he's worth going forward. As far as the NFL, I would reject the notion that it's, quote, full of criminals. But what I would say is that the league absolutely is concerned with revenue above all else, which was the first point the caller there made, Bob. And they absolutely are an optics-centric league. They are thinking constantly about how does such and such incident make them look in the court of public opinion, because they want to keep all those customers happy.
Well, how's it going to look in October where everyone's wearing pink, including Deontay Johnson for Breast Cancer Awareness Month? You talk about optics. And the other thing is I don't understand about the NFL and how I know it's a new CBA. I know they brought in Robinson to take some of the the autonomy away from Roger Goodell. But, man, I remember who was it, Terrell Pryor got a tattoo suspension. When you see Martavis Bryant smoking weed, he's not allowed to even be in the league. He has to, register again and go through this whole process. And then you see the Ridley situation, which I understand how they feel about gambling, but still a year for that, and then this gets 6, that doesn't seem right.
Well, of course not. I mean, how they feel about gambling, they feel like they want to make a ton of money off of it.
Yeah.
The marijuana thing, I mean, you know what? It's getting tiresome. It's a method of control. It always has been. You know, have one over the players. If you want a bunch, if you want to be able to smoke pot or not have any kind of testing anymore, at the very least, well, then you have to give us X, Y, and Z financial concessions. That's the owners saying we just want control. Does it look ridiculous when things like this happen? Obviously. But this isn't anything new in the NFL. Leonard Little killed somebody in a DUI vehicular manslaughter. What happened to him? A linebacker, not a quarterback, years ago. He got a new contract. This is the
Dante
same old,
Stallworth, same thing, right? Didn't he have a situation similar?
Yep.
And
I mean, Leonard Little is notorious for me because he basically got rewarded despite a pattern of bad and reckless behavior behind the wheel. But yeah, Dante Stallworth's the same thing. One of the only cases of a guy who actually did something heinous, and I do think what he did was very heinous, and then he got a second chance where it actually made sense, was Michael Vick, because at least he actually did the federal prison time that what he was convicted of doing warranted. Otherwise, it's usually some form of this, like a slap on the wrist or a suspension, and then let's get back to business as usual, because that's what the Shield's all about.
The Shield, that's exactly right. Let's go to Jim in Blonox. Jim, welcome to the Sports Call. Go ahead.
Hey, gentlemen. Well, 2 points. First of all, the first caller, I will point out that the NFL has a lower percentage of criminal behavior in comparison to the general population at that age group than the general population. But the reason for my call, the Pirates trade, I had a friend from St. Louis text me and thank me for thank the Pirates because of the 2 guys the Pirates got back. The one guy has a 182 win percentage, the pitcher, and
2-9.
First baseman they got, he's 2-9 lifetime.
Right.
And the first baseman they got has 33 errors in 2 seasons and is a career 250 hitter. The Pirates didn't have talent at the start of the day. They got even less talent right now.
And that's why the consideration of signing a Quintana, like Chris mentioned, is a good idea. At some point, you're going to have to do something. And instead of just, they keep getting more and more prospects. We keep talking about prospects. We're conditioned to talk about prospects. And that's all we ever talk about. And we talk about, man, look at this rating now. This guy's going to be this and this. Again, it's dangerous. You see what happened with Mitch Keller, and I hope he's somehow found it. But I'm not going to think that's happening. The guys they should sign are like Joe Musgrove today. Gets $100 million. They want to deal with that, so they traded him away too. So at some point, Chris, this regurgitation of trades and prospect building and this and that, it's got to show some fruition. And we haven't seen any of it, hardly any. What do you think going into next year? What do they have to hang their hats on? What can they promote?
Not a lot. They have to hope O'Neal Cruz explodes. I mean, I don't think that they are particularly far along at all on this rebuild that Ben Cherington undertook. Henry Davis is hurt. Nick Gonzalez is banged up. So some guys that are high profile in the minors are stuck in neutral right now. I think just writ large here, Bob, I do want to say it is just, I'm a broken record here. Everyone's heard this spiel before, but I'll say it again because it just is disheartening. When you look at baseball, trade deadline, 8 teams, maybe 10 teams are getting excited. And then the other 20 are doing basically what Pirates fans are doing, trying to squint and see some hope in the prospects they're getting back. It's very disheartening. And I will say, given some of the other returns for players that have been gotten or obtained by other teams that are sellers, it certainly seems like this Quintana return is pretty underwhelming.
Yep, I agree. We're due for a break. We'll take a break, come back with more of your calls right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Don't go away.